Hey, second grade. I hope you had a great long weekend and you're having an awesome Tuesday and you're ready to get started with some math. So let's get to it. All right, so today for our number talk, we have 52 plus 34. And what I want you to do, if at your house you have a piece of paper and pencil or a dry erase board and a marker, I want you to grab those supplies and then come back and solve this problem, and then we'll check it together. So right now, press pause, get what you need, solve this, and then come back and we'll check it. Okay, so let's see how you did on 52 plus 34. All right, so you may have worked it a few different ways, depends on which strategy you chose to solve this problem with. But you should have, if you just solved it like normal with the algorithm, started with your ones place first and added 2 plus 4. What is 2 plus 4? 2 plus 4 is 6. So put your 6 under your ones place. Remember, always be sure to keep these in line. That way, whenever you are going to add or look for your answer, it's all lined up and in the right place. Okay, now for your tens place. 5 plus 3. What does 5 plus 3 equal? 5 plus 3, I see that's a between fact. I can find the double in the middle of those two. What comes in between 3 and 5? 4 comes in between 3 and 5. So I could say, oh, I know 4 plus 4 is 8. So 5 plus 3 is also 8. See, I used a math fact strategy to help me solve that one. Okay, so when you added 52 plus 34, you should have gotten the answer of 86. You may have solved this problem a different way, but no matter how you solved it, you should have gotten the answer of 86. Okay, we're going to move on to our word problem of the day now. And we are going to use AptsCheck to solve this problem. All right, so here it is. Let's read this word problem together. Ken bought 26 strawberries and 14 peaches at the produce stand. He ate 5 of the strawberries. How many pieces of fruit does Ken have now? Okay, let's read back through that one more time and listen very carefully to the question that we need to answer in this problem. Ready? Ken bought 26 strawberries and 14 peaches at the produce stand. He ate 5 of the strawberries. How many pieces of fruit does Ken have now? Okay, so what question do we need to answer in this problem? How many pieces of fruit does Ken have now? See, it ends with a question mark. Okay, now let's go back through and listen to any of the information that talks about pieces of fruit, because that's what we're trying to figure out is how many pieces of fruit Ken has. So listen carefully, and when you hear something about fruit, we know that's important. All right, Ken bought 26 strawberries and 14 peaches at the produce stand. Did you hear anything important in that sentence? I heard something about fruit. I heard 26 strawberries. Strawberries are fruit. And I heard 14 peaches. Peaches are also fruit. Okay, let's listen to the next sentence. He ate 5 of the strawberries. What's important there? Well, I heard 5 strawberries. That's a fruit. And I also heard a word that helps me to know whether I'm going to have to add or subtract. Did you hear that special word too? What word was it? Ate. He ate strawberries. If you are eating fruit, are you adding to what you had or are you taking away? If you're eating the fruit, you're taking away. So that may be important when we move on to our plan. Let's look at our plan now. We're going to decide whether we need to add or subtract or maybe do both. Now, when I was listening to this, I heard some different steps happening. I heard when he bought the fruit, but then I heard he ate some of it, but we still want to know how much fruit he has. So I think we're going to have to do a few different steps. So when Ken bought 26 strawberries and 14 peaches, how would I figure out how many pieces of fruit he had then? I would add 26 plus what? 14 to figure out how many total pieces of fruit he had. And then he ate some of that fruit. So I would take that total and subtract how many? 5, because he ate 5 strawberries. And then whatever I end with should be the number of pieces of fruit that Ken has now. Do you see how that matches up with the word problem? We're adding his strawberries and peaches that he got, and then we're taking that big number of strawberries and peaches and taking away 5 because he ate part of them. And then we'll see what's left. Okay, let's try to solve this problem now. I think to start with, to solve it, I just want to solve it the plain old Jane way of using the algorithm. So let's write this equation here. 26 plus 14. Okay, looking at the ones place first. What is 6 plus 4? Ooh, that's a making 10 fact. 6 plus 4 makes 10. Now remember, I cannot write 10 right here. You can only write one digit at a time. So you take your ones place and write it, and take the tens place next door. Okay, and now we add 1 plus 2. What is 1 plus 2? 1 plus 2 is 3, and then add one more. 3 plus 1 equals 4. So 40. Is 40 our answer? No. Remember, we're only right here at this point. Now we've got to take 40 because that's how many pieces of fruit he had when he had the strawberries and the peaches. Now we're going to take 40 and take away 5 because he ate 5 strawberries. Okay, so 40 take away 5. Look at your ones place first. 0 take away 5. Is that possible? No, so what do I need to do? Go next door and get 10 more. So go next door and borrow one of those 10s and smash it into 10 ones. Now we have 10 ones plus 0. So that's 10. We only have 10 ones. Okay, now 10 minus 5. Can we take 5 away from 10? Yes. What is 10 minus 5? 10 minus 5 equals 5. Okay, and then in our tens place, we have 3 take away nothing. What would that equal? 3. So now we have an answer, 35. How many pieces of fruit does Ken have now? Looks like he probably has 35, but we're not going to say 35 until we check our work in a different way. This time I'm going to draw a base 10 block model to solve my problem. All right, so Ken bought 26 strawberries. 10, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. And 14 peaches. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay? And then he ate 5 of the strawberries. So I could go ahead and take away my 5 ones and then count what's left. Or I could count all of this up and then take away the 5. It doesn't really matter what order you do it in because you're still going to get the same answer. I think I'll take away the 5 ones now because there are 5 ones to take away, and that would be easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and now let's count how many there are now. 10, 20, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. So see, I got 35 both ways that I worked the problem. So I know for sure the answer is 35, and I can answer the question. How many pieces of fruit does Ken have now? He has 35. Okay, we're going to move on to our lesson for the day. This week in 2nd grade, we are focusing on graphing. And for this week, we're going to really focus on bar graphs. Next week, we'll look at picture graphs. Okay, so in 1st grade and in kindergarten, you should have worked on graphing. So let's talk a little bit about graphing and why would you want to graph. In order to make a graph, first you have to collect data or data. People say that word two different ways, but it both means the same. Both of them mean the same thing. So data or data. Whenever you collect data, you ask usually a question, such as, what is your favorite fruit? And people will tell you what their favorite fruit is, and you write it down. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean in a second, but you create a tally chart or a chart of some kind. Then you take that information and make a graph out of it. We graph because it makes it really easy to see and understand numbers and surveys better. And I'll show you as we learn more about graphing exactly what I mean. So this week, we're focusing on bar graphs. A bar graph is called a bar graph because as you make and put the data on the graph, it's in the shape of a bar. Again, we'll talk about all of this as we learn about it. So let's go ahead and get started. So usually when we talk about graphing in school, we collect data together and then we make a graph. Now, since this is virtual and this is just a video, I'm going to have to kind of pretend like I'm asking questions and I'm going to make my graph for you. So you'll just kind of need to follow along and watch carefully what I do, because when you get on Seesaw to finish your work, you'll need to know how to graph and you'll get to practice graphing then. Also, on your quiz this week on Canvas, there are graphing questions and you really need to pay close attention. So you can practice making graphs at home, but right now, you'll just kind of have to follow along and see what I'm doing. All right, so favorite fruit. I asked my class about their favorite fruit, and here were the votes I got. But first of all, here were the choices I gave them. I asked if they like strawberries, watermelon, or banana the best. Out of my students, 8 of them said strawberries were their favorite fruit. So I'm going to make 8 tallies. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. 4 of my students said watermelon was their favorite. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 6 of my students chose banana as their favorite fruit. 5, 6. Okay, so see how I just asked my class a question and I created a tally chart to show that data. As I was getting information from my class, like their favorite fruit, for example, as I was getting that information, that's called collecting data, where I surveyed them and asked them a question, and then as they told me their answers and I wrote it down, that's called collecting data. So I have my data now, or data, however you want to say it. Now I'm ready to make my bar graph. So this bar graph is completely blank because we still need to fill it out together. At the top here, this line is for name, so I'm not going to write my name on it. But this line here is for the title of my graph. What would be a smart title for me to put on my graph? What was my question all about for my students? Remember, it was, what is your favorite fruit? So a good title for my graph would be favorite fruit. Favorite fruit. And hopefully, I know I'm just writing in pen, that may be a little hard to see. Hopefully you guys can see the title, favorite fruit. Okay, now on the side here, there's another line. This line is going to be a label for what these numbers represent. So each one of these numbers is going to represent the number of students that voted for their favorite fruit. So I'm going to write number of students. It's always important to put labels on your graph because the labels help the person looking at your graph understand exactly what it's showing and what it's about. Okay, so I have my title of my graph. I have a label for this axis. And now I need to label this axis. This is going to show the name of the fruits. So I'm going to just write fruits because it will show the different types of fruits down here. And then I need to list all of the different fruits. So remember, I didn't give my class all of these choices. I'm not going to fill this whole thing up. I just gave them 3 choices. So I'm going to write strawberry, watermelon, and banana. Okay, those were my fruit choices. Now I'm going to graph them. Now pay close attention to how many each box represents. See, is this counting by 5s, 2s, 1s? How is this counting? Can you see? This is counting up by 1s on this scale. So that means each box will represent 1, which from this point to now, from kindergarten till now in 2nd grade, everything is probably always represented 1, but it's about to get a little more complicated. So it's going to be important for you to start paying attention to the scale on the graph. All right, so right now these boxes represent 1. Okay, let's graph. How many students chose strawberry? 5, 6, 7, 8. I had 8 choose strawberry. So when I go to graph, I'm going to draw my line all the way up to 8. See, here's 8. And then I'm going to go over and back down. And since all of these boxes represent 1, it should be 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes. And now I need to color in my bar. Sometimes I notice that kids just really sloppily color these in. It's important to do your best work when you color in these bars and try your best to fill in the whole thing, because it makes it much easier to read and to understand your graph when it's nice and neat. Okay, so 8 students chose strawberry. When you make these bars on your bar graph, you can use different colors if you want, or they can all be the same color. No matter what, it should be okay as long as it's graphed correctly. Okay, next is watermelon. How many of my students chose watermelon? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 students chose watermelon. Okay, so see, I went all the way up to the 4 here. Color in my bar. All right, last one was banana. How many students chose banana? 5, 6. So go all the way up to 6 here. And then we'll color it in. So this is called a bar graph because these are called bars. See how they kind of look like a bar? That's why it's called a bar graph, because it's in the shape of bars. Okay, so looking at my graph, I'm going to ask you a few questions now about it before we do one more for today. Looking at my graph, which fruit was chosen the most? Which fruit was chosen the most? Strawberry, right? It had the most number of votes. Which fruit was chosen the least? Watermelon was chosen the least. It had the smallest number of votes, and you can just look at the graph and see that. Okay, here's the next question. How many total students were surveyed? How many total students were surveyed? So to figure this one out, and if you haven't figured it out yet and you're still working, press pause. But to figure this one out, you should have counted up how many total students were surveyed. So you could have added 8 plus 4 plus 6 together. Or since these squares all equal 1, or rectangles really, since these rectangles all equal 1, you could have counted all of the rectangles to figure out how many total students were surveyed. So let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So there were 18 students surveyed in all. Last question about this graph. How many more students chose strawberries than bananas? How many more students chose strawberries than bananas? Press pause if you need time to think about this. Okay, so to figure out this problem, you should have looked at the strawberries and seen that there were 8 strawberries. And then you should have looked at bananas and seen that only 6 students chose bananas. To figure out how many more, that's a comparing question. And so when we compare, we usually subtract to figure that out. So we're going to do 8 take away 6. What is 8 minus 6? 8 minus 6 equals 2. And let me show you exactly how we just compared. So we said there were 8 strawberries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 6 bananas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When we compared and asked how many more, we basically just partnered these up and then found what was left. So partner, 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 partner. Oh, no partners left on this side. So there are 2 more strawberries than there are bananas. All right, we're going to quickly build one more graph. We're not going to have time for questions about it today, but I do want you to see what it looks like when these bars don't represent just one, but they represent a larger number. So let's quickly survey, and then we'll get to building our graph. Okay, so this graph, or tally chart, is labeled favorite sport. So my question to my class was, what is your favorite sport? In my class, I had 12 people say that football was their favorite sport. 3 of my students said that basketball was their favorite sport. And 9 of my students said that baseball was their favorite sport. Okay, and I know I'm moving kind of quickly, but we're running out of time. So when I get my bar graph so that I can graph the data that I just collected, I need to label it. The label for this bar graph is going to be favorite sport, because remember, the question I asked my class was, what is your favorite sport? So favorite sport is a good title for this graph. Over here, when I make the numbers, these numbers will represent the number of students that voted. So I'm going to write number of students. Or I probably could just write students and it would be okay. At the bottom, these labels will be the different choices I gave my class. So I asked them if they liked football, basketball, or baseball. Finally, I need to make my scale. Notice on this graph, there are no numbers. So we have to put those ourselves. This time I want to show you how you can make a graph by counting by 2s instead of 1s. So I'm going to go 2, 4, 6, 8, oops, not 9, oh no, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. Okay, let's graph and we'll look at how we do this together. So football, how many students chose football? 5, 10, 11, 12. So I do have a 12 spot here. So I'm going to, go all the way up to 12 and come over and fill it in. So here, since we counted by 2s on this bar graph, each bar would represent 2. Sometimes, though, when you graph, they are not going to have these little fancy rectangles for you to count. You're going to really have to pay attention to your scale. Okay, how many students chose basketball? 3 students chose basketball, but oh no, I don't have a 3 on my scale. So how am I going to show 3 for basketball? Well, what comes in between 2 and 4? 3. So I'm not going to go all the way up to 4, but I'm not going to stop at 2. I'm going to go to the middle because 3 comes in the middle of 2 and 4, and I'm just going to color it in like that. So you don't stop at a certain line. You kind of have to make your own on that one because the number that you need to graph is not listed on the scale. You have to think about where it would come. Finally, baseball. How many of my students said baseball was their favorite sport? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 students liked baseball the best. So I'm going to graph 9. But look, 9's not on here either. I counted by 2s. Where will I stop for 9? Where would 9 be at on this graph? It would come in between 8 and 10, right? Because 9 comes in between 8 and 10. So for my graph, I'm going to go up to in between 8 and 10, right in the middle, and stop there. And this will show 9. Just like that. Okay, so we're going to work more on this week, but just know that your scale is not always going to count by 1s. It could count by 2s or 5s or 10s. So we're going to learn in 2nd grade to really pay attention to what the scale is showing as we work on bar graphs. I'll see you guys tomorrow for some more bar graph work. Bye.